good? All right, good morning. This is Tune In Tuesday. This is oh my goodness, our fourth edition of Tune In Tuesday. So I am Diane Finestead Ellis, and then the content creator is Courtney Hudson, my assistant extraordinaire, who joined my team October 1st of this past year, right the first day of the annual enrollment period, when we can start talking up to seniors about all of their needs and wants for the next year in Medicare. So she has more than survived. And this idea came from me saying to Courtney, I think there's more that we can do for clients and for everyone that we love. And we can provide some topics that come up just in conversation. Everyone thinks that, when you're having a conversation with someone over 65 about Medicare and you're talking to someone under 65 about their insurance, you're just going to stay on topic. Oh my goodness, I do not stay on topic. Anybody that knows me. So we deep dive into all these different things. It first started out with women's health. We covered that. That's available on YouTube. We also covered heart health. We also covered, what's the one I'm forgetting, Courtney?
Advocacy.
Huh?
Advocacy.
Oh, advocacy. Oh my gosh, so important. How to be your own advocate, how to become an advocate. And then also today is the topic of mental health. This is Mental Health Week, Awareness Week. Some of you have probably read some things about how you can hold the information in your brain about how you're feeling with how you're supposed to be in society, where you can have gratitude, but you can also have grief at the same time. The other thing that we are going to discuss is how do you juxtaposition those feelings and where can you go? Where can you tell people to seek help and how can you seek help? And everyone always asks me, well, Diane, what are your credentials to be talking about this? I'm going to tell you what, I do not play a doctor on TV. I do not claim to be a doctor. I am not in the medical field. I have just sold health insurance since 1998. And it's been individual health insurance and individual conversation, thousands and thousands of individual conversations with people. And it's always these topics that come up. Mental health is something that I have been aware of for my own self as well as for my clients for many, many years. And thank goodness Courtney has said, let's present this. So tune in Tuesday. Here we go. There's lots to cover. So let's get this presenting mental health awareness. Every conversation about mental health has the power to change a life. It really does. And it's a bold conversation.
Do you want me
It
to share my screen? Sorry
Sure.
to interrupt you.
It
Okay.
takes a lot of vulnerability to have those conversations because there's really no right answer that anyone has. But in the process of listening and the process of connecting, we actually are adding to the quality of our mental health. So on the call, I see Betty, I see Maria Miskovic, good morning, and then also Kathy Conley-Jones, good morning. Maria is in the social work aspect space, a very respected social worker who has helped many, many families through caregiving as well as finding care and a myriad of different topics that we'll be discussing later on in the presentation, as well as Kathy Conley-Jones is in the insurance space and helps so many people. Oh my goodness. And is a former president of NABIP for St. Louis, which is the National Association of Benefits and Insurance Professionals. So we are all tuning in, and you can see the content has been created by Courtney Hudson, who has a bachelor's in social work. And then my background in education is I have a master's in teaching, and that's a concentration in autism and music. And then also my EDS is education specialist in leadership, and that's for those kiddos that are pre-K through eighth grade. And in a past life, I was a principal for a blink. But then I love the kids so much, and oh my goodness, the adults felt left out. So that's not a good balance. That's why I went back into full time into insurance 14 years ago, and then have had my license since '98. So with this today, you can be strong, and you can still be struggling. You can be grateful, and you can still be overwhelmed. You can be smiling while still silently caring more than people realize. It's not something that's obvious, but hopefully, after we go through this, you'll see some of those indicators that that person might be grateful, smiling, and strong, but they're also on the other side, struggling, overwhelmed, and just caring more than we would ever realize. So, mental health statistics: 1 in 5 U.S. adults with a mental illness has a lives with a mental illness, and 1 in 10 U.S. adults report a mental health crisis. 1 in 5 mental illness, 1 in 10 reporting a crisis. And then 14% of adults age 70 or over live with some kind of mental disorder. So it takes patience, patience with ourselves as well as with those that are around us. And you can see, that particular picture. It could be depression, it could be paranoia, it could be anxiety, and they all present in a myriad of different ways. So what is mental health? It affects how a person thinks, feels, acts, and relates to others. It includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It impacts daily choices, physical health, and how we cope with life's challenges. It affects essentially everything that we do and how we move in the world. What are some things that impact mental health? Well, grief and loss, caregiver stress, chronic illness, chronic pain, financial insecurity, just the world of insecurity, and then also isolation, making sure that you are safe can feel also like you're isolating yourself from the outside world, because the insecurities of the outside world can affect that extent of isolation and lack of community connections. So it's a matter of knowing, well, where is a safe place to connect, and how do you connect with your personality type? So I will say that many people don't know that for years and years and years and years of my life, since college, I have suffered with anxiety, huge anxiety. Many people see me as someone who just kind of floats through life and meets lots of people and knows lots of people and loves lots of people and cares a lot about people. But I will tell you, I'm very much like my dad in the way that I float through life. And that is that I need to have a structure. I need to have an agenda in order to feel comfortable with my social interactions. My dad was the same way. My dad loved to interact. So for 40 years, 44 years, he was a softball coach. And that was before he retired and after he retired, because it had an agenda. Now, my mother could walk into a party and she could talk to anybody about anything. I mean, any topic was whatever was on the table, she was going to discuss it. That makes me so uncomfortable, even to this day. So really know how you're going to show up in your community connections. Do you need an agenda, or do you need it to be free flowing? So good mental health looks like this: a state of overall well-being, coping with life's up and downs, maintaining positive relationships, working productively, feeling a sense of purpose, being emotionally balanced, thinking clearly, being grateful, stable sleep patterns and energy levels, and being self-accepting and respecting. Courtney, I think this is the most important slide that you put out here because not only does it give us a way to self-check, but it also gives us a way to have a conversation with a friend and just to ask them, hey, who have you seen lately? Where have you gone lately? What are you looking forward to? Those types of things. And so it's an upbeat conversation, and all these can be also a way to check in on friends that we love to make sure that they're doing okay, probably without them knowing that we're even checking on them. So thank you for this slide. It is awesome, my friend. And then also, what does poor mental health look like? Well, it's the opposite of what we just talked about. It's persistent low moods, it's irritability, it's arguing, people that argue for no reason. It comes out, it bubbles up, and that's what you're seeing bubbling up. Withdrawing socially, extremely fatigued. Don't disclaim that with our women's health program that we had, the very first one. Because, ladies, I'm telling you what, this premenopausal, postmenopausal thing is a real deal. And extreme fatigue can show up, and it can kind of disguise itself as mental health. So it blends over. So watch that program on YouTube. So also changes in sleep patterns. Again, women, we are affected more than men. And then also changes in eating habits, and then also feelings of worthlessness, as well as loss of motivation. Loss of motivation could also be loss of purpose. So when people retire, my husband calls it rewiring instead of retiring. I love that. So he's looking for that rewirement instead of retirement. He's like, I still have motivation. What am I supposed to do with it? I'm like, anything you want. And that can be overwhelming. Sometimes we just need to limit the choice and say, are you going to eat pizza or are we going to have a sandwich? Instead of, what do you want for dinner? What do you want for dinner? Doesn't that sound overwhelming? Well, life can feel like that. What do you want for dinner? And it's that loss of motivation of, well, what do I pursue? And so it's describing that second or third act in life, and then finding that you are the one, you within you, your soulful you is the one that's doing the contribution, not the act of what you're doing. So I always tell people we are human beings. We are not supposed to be human doings. And I have to remind myself of that. So not being able to concentrate, that's something that people have talked about. Courtney and I talked about this yesterday. It seems like brain fog has become the most common way to describe, mental health challenges in our society, because society has accepted brain fog as something that will lift, just like fog. So as long as it will lift, then we could talk about it. But not being able to concentrate is really huge. And you can notice that in conversations that you have. Inability to cope, just saying, this is too much. I'm done. Have you heard that in society? I'm done. I'm done with this. I'm over it. All those things, those are little indicators that we have an inability to cope. And then also trouble relating to others and situations. So stick with us because we're going to tell you some ways that our society has found, and just humans on without throughout the whole globe have found how to deal with these nudges or these persistent feelings of mental health not being at the paramount where we want it to be, or even at the baseline of where we want it to be. So if you feel extreme warning signs of poor mental health, or you know someone that's showing those extreme mental health warning signs, they require immediate intervention. We say this because we're being logical right now, but whenever you have your emotional brain and your logic brain happening at the same time, these things don't come to mind at first. You think, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? Well, if you have suicidal thoughts, immediate intervention. Plans to harm others, immediate intervention. Complete disconnection from reality, immediate intervention. Inability to take care of basic needs such as showering or eating, immediate intervention. So when you're going through it, you think, it's not that bad. It's really not that bad. They haven't showered for like 3 days. It's okay. No, it's not okay. We know that in our society, people pretty much shower every day and then they get on with their day. And so just know that requires immediate intervention. And I shared with Courtney yesterday, did you know that it's 2 weeks, 2 weeks of depressive thoughts in our brain? And you cannot reverse it without having some outside help or another form of medication or therapy in order to deal with the cycling of the thought process. So when you see those first things happening, the non-showering, the non-eating, red flag, red flag, that's when we need to do something. So the next thing is if you or someone you know is experiencing these symptoms, what do we do? You call 911 emergency services in your area, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. You can text 988 or the crisis hotline, and that's 741-741. We're going to give more resources as we go on. And this is so important to know that 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. There is education on this that's coming from Channel 9. If you're familiar with PBS in the St. Louis area, there's also education on this that's in programming and also money that's supporting this throughout all of our public schools. So children are aware of this. Right now, this particular line has not been popularized in the veteran arena. I'm hoping that it will going forward. But it's very important that everyone knows 988 just like they know 911. So just remember 988, 88 is the number of keys on a piano. So this can be music to your ears, folks, and the people you love. So the silent epidemic of mental health struggles. Shh, don't talk about it, right? No one wants to hear that. Oh my goodness. I can remember as a kid, I would be all excited that I was going to be in a pageant, okay? And I was going to be singing and I was going to be singing on stage. And I love to sing on stage because really you can do that activity alone. You just tune out the audience, right? So I really didn't get nervous and I love doing it. But then the moment before I would get on stage, my heart would start racing beyond belief. So when I got to college and I was a voice major, voice performance major and music education at University of North Texas, they said, "Oh, Diane, we'll give you a full scholarship. Come down here and sing." And so they did, and waived my out-of-state tuition and my books and the whole thing. So my dad was like, "Well, you got to go there because they're going to give you this money." And so I would step out on stage. My heart felt like it was going to just burst to the point that because of my anxiety and because of my perfectionism, which I think many women suffer from, I would get so nervous immediately. And it wasn't like it was a slow build. It was like it would rush through me. And so I had to take beta blockers when I was 21 years old. That is crazy. So folks, these are some of the things to remember. I thought I was so weird. I thought I was the only one in the world that suffered from stuff like that. So roughly 70% of people struggling with mental illness do not receive treatment. And then there's 45% of working adults with a mental health struggle that do not seek treatment in fear of losing a job. And then also 61% of Americans 65 and older who have concerns about depression will not seek treatment. And I will add that a lot of times when Americans are depressed, the depression can sometimes come on so quickly, they think it's going to leave quickly too. And that's within that 2 week window. And then they get beyond that 2 weeks and it stays and it can feel absolutely overwhelming. And that's when the showering can stop and the just the participation in society can stop. So the biggest barrier of talking of all is the stigma around surrounding the mental health. And it's one where, we've just got to change the name of mental health so make it cool so everyone can start talking about it. And just know when we look at each other and say, I took my day and smile, then we all know, oh, that was a mental health day. What'd you do? How'd you have fun? And celebrate that with someone. Wouldn't it be so cool if our society did that? I would love that. Oh, let's do it together. So going on, what is this? Why the stigma? Oh, the stigma. It's the shame. It's the fear of judgment. I will tell you personally what I think. And this is just me. Again, this is just me talking here. I think it's that people want to feel better than another person. And so they will just kind of go, oh, you're dealing with that. And they're thinking to themselves, I feel better. I'm not dealing with that. We're all guilty, right? We're all guilty. You see someone that's living through something that you've lived through and it was hard, or they're living through something you're going, that is hard. I'm so thankful that's not me. Ooh, that can also turn very easily into shame, into fear of judgment. It's like its cousin. So fear of being a burden, a lack of understanding of symptoms, misunderstood by society as a character flaw. It's that perfectionism thing. Oh gosh, if I tell people that I've suffered with anxiety for years, oh, they're going to think, what's wrong with her? Well, now you know what's wrong with me. I've suffered with anxiety for years. So, so it's important to know. So being high functioning, past negative experiences, when opening up, it's that judgment. It's that having the confidence and having the place and having the ability to be vulnerable, to be really who you really are at that moment, to be real. Take off the mask, folks. It that can be so scary. Me showing up with makeup without makeup and my hair done. Oh no, not this gal. But yet that's who you are. So lack of access to support. And that is knowing, will I be accepted for me? Will people love me for me? And so the stigma just affects all of that. And it affects your personality. It affects how you show up in the world. So, caregivers and mental illness. I see that Denise Huber is on the call, and she is with Martha's Hands here in St. Louis, and they do a fabulous job with helping so many caregivers. And I know that in their ways of training, they focus on the ways of Mother Teresa. And I often think of how Mother Teresa walked through the world and she was just such a giver, such a good receiver of the light of God. And so, you think about caregivers and mental health, nearly 1 in 4 adults are caregivers. 1 in 4 adults, more women than men. And 40 to 70% of caregivers experience symptoms of depression. And the symptoms of depression typically stem from the inability to create a better situation for the person that we're loving. And then sometimes the communication of the person that we're caring for or that we're loving, that's become diminished. So the connection suffers. You don't really know what they need in order to fulfill their needs, which then becomes your need because you are caregiving, you're giving the care to them. So only 1 in 5 caregivers seek mental health support. Folks, that's got to change because 53 million people across the country, I mean, it is just amazing that they are all caregivers, unpaid caregivers. So many will experience sleep deprivation. So don't misconstrue the sleep deprivation and the not showering if someone is a caregiver. This happens. I mean, because you're either going to take care of them or you're going to take care of yourself, but you got to take care of yourself too. So chronic stress, social isolation, wondering, who can I talk to about this? And Denise says, starting small. Yes, that's right. You start small. Denise, do you want to come on and talk to us? She said, "Your words today will be." I hope, hopefully. Oh, I see it in the chat. Do you see it, Courtney? She said, "Your words today will be heard by used to nourish many." Oh, for her caregivers club. So if you need to have that socialization, Denise does have through Martha's Hands a caregivers club, and they are compassionate and they are supportive, and it needs to happen across this country. So, many will also experience financial hardship, and that can be difficult too because some of the activities that you had with friends might have been going to lunch, and now you're paying for things for your parents or your husband, or, husbands paying for their wives. And that becomes a financial hardship and just a difference in lifestyle. And then society and depression, and then also grief. Courtney, are you able to read what Denise is writing in the chat?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
I was. I was
Okay,
trying to.
you want to interject?
Yeah. So Denise says that she was beginning the Nourish for Caregivers Club tonight. Your where our words here will be used there. And then she also said she lost a dear friend this morning and she's caught up with helping that process. And she's here because we made this available. So this is
Oh,
God's gift, she says.
oh, I love her. It's so sweet.
I do too.
So, okay, so going on, grief and mental health. Let's talk about grief and mental health. So, caregivers spend so much time holding everyone else, and it can cause, and that silently, they fall apart themselves. We know this. And so it's like, how can we be stronger as caregivers? Millions of Americans experience the death of a close loved one. Each year. So grief affects a significant portion of the population at a given time. Interesting fact. Courtney, I thought this was amazing that you posted this on Facebook this week, for Mother's Day. And you said Mother's Day was born out of a daughter's grief for her mother. She wanted to honor her mother, and it was never supposed to be something that became commercialized, like, the lunch and brunch type of, let's give flowers to mom type of thing. It was actually supposed to be reverent to mothers. And when I read that, I said, well, thank goodness, because that's how I celebrate Mother's Day, with my mom, being gone for 8 years. And the grieving process, people think, hey, get over it. It just, it's been a year, it's been 2 years. No, that kind of love, you don't get over, folks. And it should still be celebrated. And it should still be one where we don't expect someone to just get over the love and loss of their closest members of their family. So 30 to 40% of grieving people experience clinically significant depressive symptoms within 1 month of experience of loss. So what I've done, knowing that statistic, I wait until about the third week after someone's lost someone that I know, and then I reach out. and I say, has all the hubbub gone away? Has all the food been eaten in your refrigerator? Has everyone stopped calling you? And I said, I'm calling you now because this is the time where you need someone. And that's when you can really show up for people, is in that third week, that month, the very first anniversary, the very first holiday, those things. And also know that if you are grieving that particular day, well, then someone else that has gone through it is also grieving that particular day, and you can reach out to them. So grief is associated with higher rates of stress related illness, increased healthcare utilization. Now, let me go back to that higher rates of stress related illness. Grief can be a really huge cause of a heart attack. It can be a huge cause of a stroke because, honest to goodness, it is shown, medically shown, what I've written in my deep dives, late at night when I can't sleep and I go into all these, I'm going to investigate this and I start asking questions and I go through a rabbit hole. They say that we don't breathe as easy. Literally, we do not breathe as easy when we are going through grief or a loss of someone. We don't have the depth of breath. We don't get the belly breathing. We don't get the amount of oxygen and oxytocin that we need in order to have all of our system functioning correctly. So breathing, that old saying, take a breath, breathe. When I lose someone, y'all, you need to hold me accountable and say, Diane, breathe, because that creates that stress. That shallow breathing does not allow your body to reset, or it also doesn't allow your body to sleep. So it is our breathing. So start breathing it out. Just like you think of people that smoke, why do they not get sick? I swear, I think it's because this is my theory. There's no science behind it. I think it's because they belly breathe, and that's going to their belly. Really, the ones that get trapped in their lungs, they're the ones that are not breathing right. I'm not a proponent for smoking, but I do think that that's probably why I hung out in the smoking lounge and it did not bother me back in the 80s, because I was standing there just breathing with them and they were just talking and just having this wonderful conversation, feeling so relaxed because they were breathing. So I am going to start a crusade that we need a breathing lounge. We need a breathing lounge in every workplace. Everybody just go in there and just breathe. So make the air really high quality. So, and then anyway, that's my crazy thought. Okay, so we have increased healthcare utilization, social isolation, reduced concentration and functioning, and then greater risk of substance misuse. Folks, that's a camouflage way of saying that they are you self-medicate. Because, after that 2 weeks, it's not changing, right? Your mood's not changing. And so what do you do? Oh, I think I'll have a glass of wine. Oh, I think I'll smoke a cigarette. Oh, I think I'll, smoke, some marijuana. Oh, I think I'll take this or whatever it is. And you think, okay, it's external. It's going to be external. It's not external. It is internal. It's internally, it's happening to us. So let's look at what we can do. Factors of grief. Risk factors. Like I said, death, sudden or traumatic. This is why, you oftentimes hear of an elderly woman or an elderly man who are married and one dies and the other one dies right after. It is so traumatic. It's so different for them. So a person experiencing a loss was a caregiver, or your very close or dependent relationship, someone who died, limited social support, prior mental health issues, coping with multiple losses. Supportive relationships can be a positive factor. Opportunities to talk about the open loss, grief counseling, peer support, healthy sleep and self-care routines. I'm telling you what, they're all over the internet. They want to tell you how to sleep, that is for sure. And they want to tell you what kind of pillow to get too. My goodness, I have tried every pillow. Only thing that gets me to sleep is to just write the gratitude, write at least 5 things down that I'm thankful for, and man, I can go to bed. So it just shifts the mind. Meaning and making rituals. That's my 5 things that I write down that I'm grateful for every day. And so that book is someday it'll come out and you'll wonder, why is she grateful for that? But that day I was. So some people will laugh when they get that book someday. Compassion and understanding from others, and also giving compassion and understanding to others. It goes both ways. Man, it's a two-way street. So, next we have behind every loss is a person learning how to live in the world that has, for them, permanently changed. Think about that. People talk about like, oh, I can remember my mom, she would still talk about with her friends back in the day, like she'd be 85 if she was still alive right now. She would talk about, oh, remember when JFK was shot? And everybody remembered that. And then like in my generation, it was like, remember 9/11 that day and the whole world changed permanently. But our world really is right here. All of our best friends and our family and our loved ones, and it's a very small world for us, really. And so when that person leaves, it is permanently changed. And so it is quite striking, Courtney, that you came up with that because that was poignant to me. I thought, golly, I remember the exact days of my mom. I remember the exact days of my dad, and that those days in my world are as important as those days in yours. And so when we talk about that, I just feel like I'm talking about my own family, Courtney. When you tell me about your mama. So, what are some ways to promote good mental health? Well, prioritize connection and purpose. For me, I'm looking for an agenda. What's the agenda? And I'll come. I'll show up. But if it's a free flowing conversation, whoo, gives me anxiety, as we covered before. But for you, you might want the free flowing agenda. You might not want an agenda at all. So, healthy relationships and feeling valued are one of the strongest protective factors for mental health. So, spend time with supportive people and loved ones, people who love you and support you, and that you love to love. There's got to be those people that, when you see them, you're like, man, that's my person. Love them. So, and it feels so good. And then also join a support group and club or faith community or any other kind of group that would interest you, like what Denise is doing, and having caregivers come together and feel supported and know each other and feel that connection. The other way to do it is to volunteer. Volunteer doing something you love. Oh my goodness. If you need to know what places you can volunteer, there's tons of places that would love you as volunteers. I mean, we have a list this long of, clients that will call and say, oh, Diane, I have about an hour or 2 hours. Or, we'll say, well, my gosh, you could go pet doggies. Oh, you can become someone that just stops by a assisted living facility and says hi and brings flowers once a week. I mean, there's all these different things that you can do. Just the sky's the limit, because people always love their day to be made, and really, it doesn't cost anything. It really only just costs a zero. Smile and show up and ask how somebody's doing, and that can be enough connection and purpose, and that can be enough agenda for me. So, which is great. Then we have get outside. Get outside. Oh my gosh. One of the best things ever that happened when I wanted to get off those beta blockers when I was in college. My mom came down from St. Louis and she said, honey, it's going to take a minute to get the stuff out of your system. So let's garden. Let's build you a garden. And we did. And it was all, I still remember it to this day. It was all pansies because it was real early and it was Texas. So this was in April of that particular year. And I wanted all purple flowers. And mom said, no, you're going to be happier if you get an assortment, like a rainbow. And she said, because this is kind of like your rainbow moment in your life. You're saying that you don't want to perform because you don't want to to have all that anxiety. And then I decided that I would be a music education major. It was a big decision. And she said, honey, this is a rainbow moment. So I remember having this huge barrel of flowers, and it was all different colors of pansies. So it were my rainbow flowers because I felt like I kind of, made that decision in life and crossed a rainbow. So celebrate that when you get there to those when you really know yourself and you know what you need, celebrate those moments. Another way to do it is to take a walk, and we have beautiful trails in the Missouri area. You can see all the trails just by going online, and they're just beautiful. If you're a birder, then that's a wonderful way to see a lot of the different native birds in Missouri. Also, you can hang a bird feeder. And my mom knew every name of every bird. She knew how to do all the bird calls, which was weird. But I mean, she did it. And I'm like, Mom, what is that? And she would tell me, this is a da 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 da. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And so now there's those bird cameras. Have you guys seen those? They're awesome. I love them. I mean, to me, I'm like, what kind of bird is that? I've turned into that weird person I thought my mom was. God, when did that happen? So, but also read and listen to a book outside. You know what? It was so interesting. This weekend, I was down in Springfield, Missouri, and there was this young guy. He's probably in his 20s, and he was sitting outside of the Drury Inn, right where you pull in that portico and you're underneath the overhead. He was sitting right there in that berm area on the ground in the grass with his back against this wall that was or a pillar that was made of brick. And I looked at him, I said, Hey, you look really comfortable. He said, Hey, I am. And you're interrupting me. And he was reading. So I mean, I will probably never get that picture out of my mind. He found his spot to just plop down and read. Now, what they're doing in other countries, and they're starting to do this in America, is you turn off all your devices and you cannot bring your devices into the library and everybody reads. Imagine that. Everybody plays games. Imagine that. And it's a gaming and a reading night, and then they have live music, but the music is classical music. And so it's tuned to a different frequency, a different vibration. So we all know that music can also help us in elevating our mood or creating a mood. So slow music is going to slow everything down, and upbeat music is going to upbeat that. So just imagine all of those things happening in the same place and how relaxed our brains could be and the connections that you can make once you quiet down the brain. So get outside and do your favorite things. During COVID, I can remember my husband, who wasn't my husband at the time, but man, I wanted him to be. He would say, Diane, what'd you do when you were a little girl? Because I had all this free time during COVID, right? And so, because I wasn't driving back and forth to appointments. And I said, well, I used to ride my bike. He goes, great, we're gonna go get you a bike. So we went and got a bike. And I rode it everywhere. He said, what else did you do? I said, I'd write music, I would write books. And so that's when I started writing in the anthologies. And so I'll be doing my seventh anthology this fall. And it's a great way to meet people. With an agenda, of course, because you talk about your book, and then also it's one where for me it's cathartic because I get to share funny stories. So just think about what you did when you were little and what you really enjoyed. Your soul still needs it because we never really grow up. We really only stay 10 in our brain. We think we can do everything we did when we were 10 too. Golly, don't tell me to do a cartwheel though. I would really fail. So, okay, next thing. So have good physical health habits. Prioritize sleep. Okay, now I want to give you a funny thing here. It says 7 to 9 hours of sleep, and you think, okay, I got 5. I still didn't get 7. I'm supposed to get 7. Okay, that is mind chatter. If you were only getting 4 before, and now you're getting 5. Okay, that is a huge win. Huge, huge. So don't think I'm not getting 7 or 9. I'm terrible. No, it just that's like what some people need. But if you're getting 3 and now you're getting 4, or you're getting 4 and now you're getting 5, then great. And there's all of this science behind sleep. So if you want a deep dive, Denise and I went to this fabulous program for the Mercy Foundation about sleep and how to get there. It's just amazing. Also, exercise regularly. It says typical 30 minutes a day. Okay, okay. I'm going to let you off the hook here too. 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. You stand up from the desk, you do your little push-ups. Okay, 5 minutes. People, I'm telling you, when you look at, and you guys know this, when you look at the microwave and you're standing there waiting for a minute, it's a long time. It feels like an hour, right? So 5 minutes at least, 6 times a day. I can do that. I can do a little something, something moving, and that equals 30 minutes. It's not 30 minutes that you have to drive to the gym, work out for 30 minutes, and then drive home. Then it's an hour and a half. I can't do it. When someone told me that, I was like, oh my gosh, Eddie's right. He calls me the dumbest, smartest woman he knows, my husband. So I thought you had to do it all together. You do not. Also, eat a balanced diet. Okay, so I say eat less cake. And that's my balanced diet, folks. So if you're only eating cake once a week and you were eating cake 3 times a week, you have improved. Okay. So this is not the whole thing of, oh, eat, oh, you got to eat your vegetables and then don't eat the carbs and don't eat the protein. Okay, do all of that. We're supposed to do that. Drink more water. Okay, if you're only drinking 2 glasses of water, all right, add a half more glass. Okay, that is an improvement. Everything we do, we should get credit for and give ourselves credit for. We should not deny ourselves the credit for not achieving what all of this is saying. But if you do it incrementally, woohoo, we do it. Everybody got that? It's all like you're off the hook. I love that. When I started thinking of it that way, I'm like, man, I am physically fit. No, I'm not. But I'm getting there because I'm letting myself off the hook and giving myself for credit everything I do. Emotional and mental strategies. Okay. Practice mindfulness and relaxation. Folks, if I'm in nature, this happens for me. So you got to know your spot. You got to know where you're going to be mindful and where you're going to feel it and your relaxation. It could be that I'm out in the garden and I'm just looking at right now, I'm looking at the irises. I love those. They're gorgeous. I like their leaves. They just take me to a whole other place. And then I deep breathe and I do my exercising and my meditation. Meditation doesn't have to be the om thing with your legs crossed and all of that stuff. Meditation is when you are breathing and you are looking at creation around you and you are thinking about how you are moving in this world and you're being, you're not doing anything, you're just being. And in that, you're loving yourself. And then you can practice gratitude. You think about all the things you're thankful for, things that you've accomplished, that your friends have accomplished, that your family's accomplished, that the people around you that you're proud about. You can practice all those things that you wouldn't have had if you didn't do this or that. All the things that have worked out that you were stressed out about that eventually worked out, and you're like, golly, how'd that happen? And then you can trail it back to a person you met or experience you had, and all of that gratitude trail is fabulous. I love that. I do it every night. And then limit negative inputs. Woo! This is important. So I'm talking to my my sweet friend, and she says, I just can't stand social media. I said, why? She said, because it's so political and people argue and it's ridiculous. And I said, and you read it? And she said, yeah. And I said, and then you read more? And she said, yeah. And I said, and if you read less, you will get less. And that's how it works on social media. And that's how it works in our mind. The more negativity we pour in, the more negativity we pour out. The more positivity we pour in, the more positivity we pour out. And I said, here, look at my social media. And I wasn't bragging. I just said, look at it. It's totally different than yours. She goes, oh my gosh, Diane, this looks like unicorns and rainbows. I said, sure does. I said, and a whole lot of the creator. I said, because that's what I like to see. So the more I say I like to see that, the more I see that. And it's the same in our world, it's the same in our perspective. So avoid dwelling on mistakes because I'll tell you what, there is nothing we can do to erase a mistake. The only thing we can do is go on, sharpen the pencil, and go at it again. That's it. We got to let it go and we got to just keep it moving because the day and the clock is ticking. So set realistic goals. Deciding on what you want to achieve helps build a sense of accomplishment. Yeah, write it down. I'm going to do this today. You know, like I have had this dress that I have on. I've wanted to get back in it. For a blink of a minute. I wasn't able to get in it, and I was wearing it last spring, and I thought, well, I want to wear it again this spring. So I did a few more of those, stand ups, sit down, stretch things, 5 minutes here and there throughout the day, and then drank more water, and then ate less cake, and then guess what? A realistic goal. I'm back in the dress. Hallelujah. But life is like that. It's not as trite as a dress. I'm just using that as an example. Okay, so mental health is not a weakness to hide. It is a vital part of every human life. It's vital. So when we choose to listen, speak up, and seek support, we replace the stigma. We do. The stigma with understanding and isolation, with connection, and hopelessness with hope. And so, my friends, I will tell you that like attracts like. And in my life, I attract people that have a lot of anxiety too. But I also attract people in my life that are talented, creative, loving, caring, beautiful, soulfully beautiful people. And I know that. I recognize them on my worst day if I've experienced, I recognize them on my best day. I'm one that I love to celebrate others and what they've accomplished because an accomplishment will never know the inner workings of what has created them to be able to be and achieve that accomplishment, be it a caregiver and a really positive one and a positive force, be it a mom, be it a graduate, be it a business leader, be it a community leader, be it our next door neighbor. We never know what is going on, but with understanding and connection and hope, we can overcome. So, resources for those who might still be struggling. This is important. So, you have the National Helpline, you have 988 for suicide prevention. You also have NAMI, the National Association or the National Alliance on Mental Health. NAMI is there for caregiver resources, peer support. The Veterans Crisis Line, the Center for Disease Control, the National Alliance on Mental Health or Mental Illness, the United Way, the National Institute on Mental Health, the tips for talking with your healthcare provider, and then the Kauffman Fund here in St. Louis, as well as the Alzheimer's Association nationwide and also here in St. Louis. Please mark your calendars for the walk on October 31st. Wear your costume and come on and walk. And then also Voice STL, which supports over 514 nursing homes on the eastern side of Missouri, giving voice to those people that do not have advocates or family members that can speak for them, and also Champ Dogs. Let's not forget how awesome pets are and can be for people who need to have that comfort and encouragement. Lord knows that Lucky is called that because I'm darn lucky to have that little doggy. He knows when my breathing changes, he knows when my mood changes, and all he has to do is go bark 3 times to Eddie, and Eddie knows stay away from my wife. Thank goodness for that dog. For all the reasons. So now I'm going to open it up to you guys for questions and comments and aha moments. Maria.
I think my um, microphone is working now. It wasn't earlier. Sorry about that. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah, you're
Okay.
great.
Okay. Well, I mean, I appreciate what you're doing. I think the information you gave was great, and I totally agree that, the more we talk about it, the more normal it is. And so, I think there's so many people that are very high functioning that um, probably maintain a little bit of mental health issues. One, I mean, we're all human, so it's a fact of human life that we all have emotions, and probably if we could get better in touch with our emotions, we would be healthier overall. So um, I right now, I one of the reasons I really wanted to uh, explain why I'm attending today. I really um, I think Diane actually introduced me earlier a little bit, and I couldn't really respond to that. But having been a social worker for 30 years and largely focusing on geriatrics and mental health through that career, um, I think that it's a primary issue for me, that especially when I look at our older adults and that are housed in assisted living and independent living and skilled nursing and or at home for that matter. I think that mental health issues have just gotten more and more they've blown up really since COVID, and in a good way because I think people are more willing to talk about it. I think it's less taboo even for the older adult community. And you think about the resilience that older adults have because they go through so many losses and changes in their life. But I would love to see that become more of a normal focus in our care plans for older adults, and people who, they may not speak up about mental health issues because they're so used to coping, and because they're so used to, that stigma that exists, even if it is getting less over time. I have hope for our younger generations, including our baby boomers, that more and more normalize that discussion. So, I think what you're doing today here is just fully contributing to that effort, and I appreciate it. I'm glad that you're speaking about it.
I'm so glad that you're on this call. So, tell us more about your business, Maria.
We have a care management company that basically helps people navigate through the system. And I would say more than half of our clients are older adults. And then the larger portion of the rest of the half is people with mental health challenges. So we have over 20 care managers who are nurses and social workers, and a few LPCs, a few gerontologists. And we are basically um, helping people hopefully improve their quality of life by addressing their care issues that are glaring crisis issues at the moment, but then trying to settle those down and really create a system for them that either in a facility or at home, oftentimes at home because that's where people prefer, um, and really, helping them set up uh, home care services, the right equipment, the right doctors, and helping them hold their hand through the process because, a lot of people just need a partner at any age that feels like, they're doing it on their own, but they aren't fully alone. Um, and a lot of times, for whatever reason, people want to do that with somebody that maybe isn't family, so that family can just be
Right.
family.
Hmm.
There's a benefit to being a stranger. And so anyway, so that's a majority of our business. However, we also offer guardianship and healthcare powers of attorney for people who need healthcare decision makers in their life. And we also have a counseling agency where we focus on everything from school age kids to older adults. We really wide span. There's a team of 20 therapists there. So very grateful to be able to serve the community in the best way I know how. And, hopefully we continue to be able to do that. So,
I think it's just awesome that you guys have just grown and grown and grown, and the capacity has grown to meet the need, and I see it continuing to grow because it was one where you kind of pioneered that in the St. Louis area, saying, this is a systemic problem and it can affect the generations. And I was just watching the interview with Katie Couric and Bruce Willis's daughter. I don't know if you've seen it,
I never seen
but
that.
oh my goodness, it was a really difficult decision for them. And she received a lot of pushback, societal pushback, because he was with her and then she had her younger kids and her husband, and they made the decision because he was 24-hour care at this point with his ALS, that they were going to move him to one of their other homes that they had, not into a nursing home, but 24-hour care within that home where they could then go visit. And the pushback that she said, pardon me for paraphrasing her, she said that she was judged because people didn't understand that it was really weighing on her marriage. It was weighing on her relationship with her children and just the division of her time and being her being her best self. And
Yeah.
she said, this way, he's getting what he needs. We're able to see him. We're able to be his family instead of his care and part of that care team. And I thought, golly, what a bold choice. But so many people in America, if you have that ability, great. They obviously have the means to be able to do that. But I think it's one where we as women, when we become caregivers, we feel like we have to get societal permission to do
Yeah.
what we're doing before it's okay. It's very strange where that's the right thing for them, but yet you feel like you have to explain it to everyone else and get them to say it's right, but you really don't. It's a matter of what works for your family, what works for you, and is everybody healthy in that decision? And I think that's the love and care that you've brought forward. Is everybody healthy with this decision? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, families are a system. It's not just one person, it's everything that surrounds that person.
Hmm.
So, the more you can make that system whole, the more you make the person whole. And what's a solution for one person is not necessarily the same solution for somebody else.
Right.
So it's easy to sit back and judge that, oh, you didn't do it right or whatever. But it's just there's no cookie cutter approach to caregiving. Every person is unique, and that's actually one of the reasons that we started Care Choice to begin with. Was I was really hoping for a much more personalized approach to healthcare, because unfortunately, healthcare is not personal anymore. There's no customer service or very minimal customer service, and no fault to physicians or anything else. I mean, the system itself is set up really in a lot of areas to fail, because it's really not set up to listen to the individual. It's setting up some sort of cookie cutter approach that one size fits all, and that's not reality.
It
So
isn't reality. I mean, we see that on the insurance side for sure, and on the Medicare side, there's holes that are there, and we all know that. And it's the home health care, it's the long-term care, it's the cancer or chronic illness, and it's also when you go to the hospital and you go to rehab, these are all built-in gaps in Medicare. And people don't know that they have these gaps. And then what happens is the parent is typically looking at the son or the daughter to be now the expert in knowing those gaps and filling those gaps. And if they don't have a policy that fills those gaps, well, they just think the son or the daughter is going to fill them.
yeah, yeah,
And I'm like, whoa, 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 let's have this conversation way ahead of time here. So it's one where the more choices you have come from the private side for sure.
yes,
And that private side is one to know all your options. I was just introduced to a way to refer health sharing as part of my toolkit. And it's interesting. They concentrate on wellness. And the wellness aspect is they have, with one particular health sharing company, they have 50 visits for either chiropractic or massage therapy. And then their out of pocket deductible that they have to pay goes down by showing that they're doing healthy habits. So again, it's one where the health sharing side has moved to the wellness focus, where the insurance side of the private insurance will focus on wellness, but the actual main marketplace, and also Medicare, it's not really that focused on wellness. It's
right,
focused on when you get sick, then this is what happens.
right,
So I think it's very important for all of us to have these conversations about mental health, because as long as it lives in your body, we all know it starts to show.
mhm,
In some way, form, or another, it comes out. So I think having a way of having a third party like what you all offer with Care Choice, where they can have someone that's not part of the family listen and hear what's going on, and then make logical decisions and not be so involved emotionally.
mhm,
I think that's so important. Because
yeah,
any family that I have worked with that has had that experience has so appreciated it. I mean, they just, gosh, I can't imagine. One of the families I had, she was in the hospital, and her husband had just passed 4 months before, and her daughter was on one coast and her son was on the other. Without that care manager in place, I don't think they would have been able to continue their careers. And someone would have had to move, or she would have had to move away from her friends and that kind of thing. So I think it was just a godsend. So thank you, Maria, for what you do.
thank you very much.
Oh, I just love what you do. You're just awesome.
Thank you. Thank
Kathy Conley-Jones, what was your aha moment? You coming on? Here, unmute yourself.
Okay, I had to figure out how to unmute myself. Boy, I'm sure a lot of people have probably thought, let's not allow her to unmute herself. Okay, so I think, first of all, this is an absolutely wonderful idea, not only for those of us in the insurance industry, but it allows us to sort of take a step back and exhale. I think most of us hold our breaths on a regular basis. I don't care if you're on the insurance side, Medicare, whatever. You're usually holding your breath because you're talking to another human being. And you have to ask questions. And I've always said that those of us who are on the risk management insurance side, we know more about individuals than most of their doctors, their attorneys, everyone, right? We know finances, we know health, we know a number of different things. And what I thought was a great, I'm going to say my aha moment, is when you said how many people are holding their breath, right? We're holding our breath, and someone has to give you um, the permission to exhale. And I think part of that, what we do, and I'm going to weave in those of us who are on the side of protection. That's how I look at it. I think that most of the time we do take more of a emotional part of, with our clients. We're concerned when something triggers that particular product that we provided to them, right? And you get that call and all of that happens. And I know, Diane, for sure, that you are more than an agent, more than a broker, and you become a trusted um, advisor. And I think
As
that's
are
what we
you,
all
Kathy.
have to
As are
do.
you. As
And
are
I
you.
thank you. And I think it's important that we also have that moment for ourselves, that we exhale, that we look at what we take on, because a lot of times we don't think about, we're working and taking on the different individuals, and it's almost impossible not to take on the conditions that they have, so to speak,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
It becomes an integral part. And then you try to find solutions for whatever challenge that is. And when doing that, that we also have to remember how important it is that we, who are sort of acting as that advocate, that we need to have advocates for ourselves. So, what I believe that this particular session has done, it has allowed all of us to think about our own mental health, those around us, and we think about, we do an awesome job for our clients, but we can't be there unless we do an awesome job for us
For
as well, right?
ourselves. Right.
Exactly. So, and I always use the analogy of airlines. When you get on the plane, right? They, first of all, you got to know where your seat is. The second thing you need to know is, where are the exits? Where are we? All right, if you have to get out of this. And the third thing is, in the event of turbulence, always put the mask on yourself first before you can help someone next to you. And I think that what you're doing is absolutely perfect for that. It gives us all a little bit of respite. I'm so glad to know Maria out there. Maria, you've opened up
Amazing. This is an
absolutely.
amazing meet of the two of you.
I mean, it is great, and
Great
so
things are going to happen.
that's great things. It starts with one. Thank you, Diane. Um, but I do think that all of the things that we've heard today are so important, not only for our clients but for ourselves. And grief, uh, I know that my friend that has been gone now for a little over a year and a half, um, fourth grade. That's how long we were friends. And I'm having to navigate a lot of things. And I had to just stop one day and say, "But Kathy, how are you doing? You're taking care of the kids. You're taking care of all those other pieces of your best friend for, oh my God, I think we figured out was 65 years or some
Oh my
crazy number."
goodness.
But the thing comes down to, we all need that moment to stop and do a quick analysis of where we sit, so that we can be better for our clients, for our family, and for ourselves. So this is a great
Oh,
put that
thank you.
mask on yourself moment.
Well, my
And I
friend, you are
appreciate
so beautiful. You're so beautiful inside and out. I just absolutely love you. You're such a light to your community, to this community, as well as to your clients. My gosh, I'm so excited that you now know Maria. Y'all are going to be able to do some fantastic work together.
you got that right.
Oh, I know it.
Maria, I will be all over your phone, your emails, everything. I will get that done. Well, let
I
me add
think,
one more thing. This
uh-huh.
is an ask. Courtney, you're doing an absolutely fantastic job being
Yes.
an addition and sometime a leader for our Diane, which I
Mm.
think is absolutely great. Will we be able to have access to some of those um, the PowerPoint? Because I see such a need. We just started are talking about starting a I'm going to call it pastoral care, but a grief section in our church because we're noticing, of course, a lot of individuals are passing away. But also, we're noticing there's a number of individuals who have lost spouses, whomever, and they are left alone. And that loneliness can be,
The
um,
isolation.
oh my God. And so I would love if it is not, if it's patented, that's not a problem. We will always give credit where credit is due. I saw the beginnings of like our first class, uh,
Yes,
to, so that they can feel comfortable in knowing that it's okay that you're feeling this way. You've got the loss, you've got the grief, you've got the aloneness, but we are coming to help you with some type of a solution. So I would love to have access to that with your permission.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I can send it to you. Yeah, no problem.
Courtney, working on this, what was your aha moment? What was yours when you were working on this?
Oh, the whole thing, really, honestly, truthfully. But I think the biggest thing I learned was the importance of humanizing being human. Realizing that struggling it's not a flaw, it's a shared human experience. Like feeling overwhelmed, grieving, needing help, carrying pain, it doesn't make us weak, it makes us human. Um, and it's realizing that joy and sorrow can coexist together in the same space. You can be grieving while still finding reasons to hope. You can feel shattered while continuing to heal, and you can carry tremendous loss while choosing to support others too. Um, and mental health, I realize too that mental health matters at every stage in life. It's not just, when you're young or when you're older, or it's all the time. Um, that was my big aha moments.
Well, I love it. I love the content that you're creating. I think it's amazing. And so next month, Courtney is creating this, co-creating this with Jennifer Schaefer from the St. Louis Alzheimer's Association. And it is about Alzheimer's awareness. And we will have the executive leadership team with us on the call. So it should be just a great, rousing conversation about the latest findings for dementia and Alzheimer's. And many of those latest discoveries are here in St. Louis through Washington University. So we are very blessed to live and be from St. Louis, but we know that this little podcast gets watched by people all over the country. So if you want to see what's happening in St. Louis, come on down and see us. Or just zoom in on June 9th. So I want to thank Kathy Conley-Jones. I want to thank Maria Miskovic. I want to thank Courtney Hudson. And I want to thank all of you all. If you need to reach us, the best way is 314-302-5743. That is my cell. And text is the only way to reach me. Or you can reach me through my website, which is www.diane, Diane, insurance, stl.com. Or if you're interested in health sharing, please visit my referral website. And that's the other side of insurance now, folks. It's the nonprofit side, so it might blow your mind. But just know it's a tool in the toolkit. And for some people, it's right, some people, it's not. But that is www.impactnow, CHA dot ACNIBO.com. Again, it is www.impactnow.ca.acnibo.com. That's my referral website for health sharing. And my other website for insurance is DianeInsuranceSTL.com. So you can receive this information on YouTube, and you'll also see it on my website going forward. I want to thank you all again. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. God bless you. And also hold your hearts and breathe deeply and let it fill with joy as you go forth. See you guys later.
Thank you, ladies.
Bye.
Bye bye.